Hey, what's going on, guys? Here we're going to be doing a review of the brand new debut self-titled album from Wet Leg. Wet Leg is a brand new British indie punk duo who made waves a few years ago with a few singles, and then of course caught a bit more attention last year with the single Shaes Long, which was definitely one of the best post-punk singles of that year out of all the ones we got. Because, yeah, given all these modern post-punk revivalist acts we've been getting from bands like Black Country New Road, Squid, Shame, it's no wonder that there'd be even more trying to fit into that realm. But with Wet Leg here, they bring in that post-punk sound, but give it more of an indie pop twist. And not in the same way where all these pop-punk artists lately have just been incorporating pop into punk, but instead these people bring the post-punk into indie pop rather than the other way around, and I think given by some of the singles this album had, they did that really well. On songs like Shaes Long, of course, which I love the cheeky, tongue-in-cheek, hilarious lyrics like I got the big D and is your muffin buttered? Can't forget that one. But yeah, just those very tongue-in-cheek lyrics mixed with the very tongue-in-cheek but fun, bass-driven instrumental, and the chorus that's simple but also captivating, just like a lot of the instrumentals, and just like what a lot of this album provides with basically the simple aesthetics of post-punk with the bass lines, the hard-hitting bass lines, the guitar grooves, but also giving it a bit more of a less complex and more raw aesthetic, but raw in the sense that it's more subtle, not as professional, not as expensive, clearly very bedroom type production, but with these aspects of post-punk or punk rock in general, and I think they do it really well on some of the singles like Shaes Long, which has a very killer chorus with the guitar picking up, and lyrics are just simply about, well, lusting, masturbation, getting horny, and bragging about having Buffalo 66 on DVD. Yeah, what a flex. And then we have the song Too Late Now, which is used as the closing track of this song, which works as a great closing to the album, where thematically it's just about not letting other people tell you what to do or how you should be. Don't let things like Tinder or other things on social media get to you. Just be yourself, love yourself, just be in a bubble bath, I guess, and I think it's done pretty well. And so, yeah, there were a couple of singles, of course, that I weren't as crazy about, like the song Oh No, which is what I kind of take from the lyrics is a song about not letting things that you see on social media, hate comments or stuff, and other things you see in real life, let those two things contrast and let those affect you mentally. And the song Your Mum, which, while I do think is kind of fun, the tongue-in-cheek lyrics here are a little bit harsh, because while I do like a lot of tongue-in-cheek lyrics on this album, on this particular song, they kind of lose its flavor a little bit when you look at the toxicity behind the meaning of those lyrics, as it's clearly about, you know, talking to the face of this partner you've just broken up with and saying you feel bad for their mother that they raised a child like this. So yeah, this album had the singles that I loved and encapsulated a lot of the elements that I already came to love about Wet Leg, combining the typical simple and fun aesthetics of post-punk, but with the more bedroom indie pop undertones that's also been gaining a lot of traction lately, which I guess is part of the reason why these two girls have gained a lot of attention. So there were those singles that I loved, a couple that I weren't crazy about, but it still didn't decrease my excitement for this album in any way. I was still looking forward to this. But yeah, unfortunately, getting this album here, it's kind of a mess, and I am kind of disappointed, honestly. So, yeah, it's just a matter of there are a lot of tracks laced in here where the instrumentals are either too redundant or utilizing the same aesthetics, the same sonic aesthetics they already use in a lot of tracks, like the song Convincing, which is just a very by-the-numbers, standard indie rock kind of instrumental. The lyrics don't really touch upon much here, and there's those weird synth passages that are layered throughout as well. We have the song Supermarket, which is a very by-the-numbers kind of song that reminds me of another power pop song that an artist like Weezer would make. And while I guess some of what they're doing is fun, it does get redundant by the end. And it's one of those songs that, despite there being some very short tracks on here, it feels like one of those songs that just could have really ended at the 2-minute mark. And the song Piece of Shit is another song that is really by the numbers, really sounds like typical blend of folk rock and indie pop with those weird synth chords added in there once again, and don't really care for the lyrics too much on this one, even though this album is not the most complex when it comes to the lyrics, and there's supposed to be a lot of tongue-in-cheek lyrics, and that's what I loved about singles like Too Late Now and, of course, Shaes Long, but that is really missing on a lot of songs in this album. The fun and I don't give a fuck kind of aesthetics on this album is just really missing and really lacking, especially on songs like Your Mum, like I said, where rather than being cheeky and tongue-in-cheek, it just feels like they're being too serious. It just, with the tone of the vocals and who it's directed to, it just sounds a bit too serious. Now, granted, there are still a few extra tracks here that do go a little bit hard, like the opening track, Being in Love, which is short, simple, and straight to the point about the lyrics, just like what I liked about a couple of the singles about, well, being in love and not being able to control that feeling. And the chorus with the la 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 la, I think is quite good and really sets the tone, and I think works as a really good opening for this album. We have the song Angelica, which is a very simple structure, but very hard-hitting guitar riffs as well, and I feel like this is one of the few tracks here that goes nearly at the 4-minute mark that doesn't really drag on to me. And the song I Don't Want to Go Out. I do like some of the introspective lyrics here, and the start of it does kind of start a little bit boring and a little bit one-dimensional, but once it does pick up in the chorus where the riffs get harder, it does get better. It's just, I wish it could have had that for the entirety of the track. And going into the other main issue I have with this album is just the way it flows. And I don't mean in terms of any sort of theme that this album may have, because I know this is just a debut album. It doesn't really need a theme, but given some of the track listing and the way it's sorted, and considering how I think the first 2 tracks work pretty well as the first 2 tracks, and the closing track works as a good closing track, there are a lot of tracks here that just don't really go for much sonically compared to other post-rock or post-punk outfits I've seen out there. They just sound either one-dimensional or a little bit redundant or getting caught up too much in... It's like these two are thinking, well, how far can we go with this sound without going too experimental while still remaining accessible and still remaining within our indie pop and post-punk routes? It seems like they kind of run out of ideas at some point. It seems like they don't know which direction they want to go for. Even lyrically, there are some parts here where it seems like they're just kind of really riffing it or writing on it while the paper's burning, because some of the lyrics here do feel a little bit rushed compared to some of those on the singles as well. Sonically, the album lacks cohesion, and in terms of conceptually, or not really conceptually, but even more spiritually with the lyrics, I don't really see much of a story that's going on here. Not that it needs one, like I said, but it seems like this just feels a lot more like a mixtape than it does an album, to be honest, and because a lot of the elements here with the hard-hitting bass lines, the simple guitar riffs, kind of do get a bit stale by the end, to the point where a lot of these song structures just feel very predictable, and that's really what kind of rubbed me the wrong way about this album, really let this album down for me, and really did make me feel disappointed. So, yeah, while there are some good songs here, there are some good highlights, and Wet Leg still does have a lot of potential for what they can do in the future, I just don't really see it on this album, because it seems like the band are really getting lost in their ways and running out of ideas, resulting in some very redundant, by-the-numbers instrumentals, some very rushed lyrics and songwriting, and even the lyrics just kind of lack some of the humor and charm that made some of the singles really stand out, and that's what really kind of disappointed me about this album and why I'm giving it a strong 5 out of 10. Well, anyway, that's going to conclude this review, so if you guys enjoyed, let me know, like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you think of this album, what's your favorite track, what's your least favorite track, how'd you feel about this album, but until then, guys, I'll catch you in the next video or the next review, so stay tuned. This is RhinoRatesMusic signing out. Bye-bye.